Actions. Uh, Karen Dent asks, Andrew, on your best and most fulfilling days, what's happening? How are you feeling? And what are the thoughts going on in your mind? Speaking of thoughts. And on the tougher days, what's happening? How are you feeling? And what are the thoughts?
Ah, well, on the up days, I would say my best up days. I'm trying to which ones to choose. Um, no, I'd say my up days are the days where I'm sitting back and watching the team that I'm responsible for performing, and I'm not doing anything other than really just being there as an observer and supporter. Like I'm not there's somebody else on the helm, there's somebody making the calls on the sales, there's people leading some of the activities going on in the boat, and it's just you're just kind of watching the team do its thing. um, and Monique, when I first met Monique, she used this analogy of leadership as sort of being like snorkeling, where you spend most of the time snorkeling on the surface and you're just sort of gliding along, you know, eyes down, looking at all your people down below who are all down, searching for treasures in the bottom, or they're doing their thing underwater. And only when you see somebody is in trouble or needs support do you dive down to help them. And as soon as you have, then you come back up and you're back to snorkel again. And
Mm,
and 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 I think those moments on the boat are the moments that I really cherish now, which probably is an evolution from early in the race where I probably would have said, when I get to helm and
yeah.
the biggest wind, or whatever. Now it's being able to see the team perform at its best with little hands-on from me.
Mm,
There's still guidance in terms of checking in on everybody and observing what's going on and giving some guidance, some feedback on how we can be better. But generally, it's more of a orchestrating and watching the whole thing unfold would be the high moments. And my thoughts in those moments are really like, you know, how can I support each person? So they're all sort of very empowering and positive thoughts, very focused on the performance that we're trying to get. So I'm very clear on, what we're trying to achieve. I've communicated that to everybody, and then they're all performing the roles to execute on that.
mm,
Um, the other side, probably if there are down days, they're down days probably because we haven't gotten everybody fully on board, or I haven't communicated with everybody effectively to get them on board with what we're trying to accomplish, um, and why, and what needs to be done, and why it's important that it's done in a certain way. And so we end up, kind of making a mess of what we're trying to do. And I always reflect back after those watches and think, boy, something did not get communicated up front here,
mm,
um, for us not to execute, for the last watch the way we could have. And so, I think those thoughts in the moment are probably in the moment they're a little bit frustration, uh,
mm,
versus trying to figure out how can I resolve this now instead of waiting, sort of letting it unfold and getting frustrated by it. I think I could do a better job of figuring out how in the moment to be better and to communicate better and be a better leader in those moments. Um, I if I reflect, I think a lot of those moments tend to happen during the night watches
mm,
when people are tired and people haven't, we've been woken up for like the midnight shift goes from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So that's a tough one usually. And then 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is a tough one typically.
Mm.
Those two watches, you've got to find a way to get people engaged in doing what needs to be done. And I mean, the other side of it, to Karen's question, is sometimes there isn't anything to be done other than, somebody's got to helm the boat straight for a 4 hour watch. And so we'll have a rotation. And, we might trim the sails a little bit here, a little bit there, but there isn't a whole lot to be done. And it's very easy for people to get disengaged in those sessions. And I think if I was to say that's a down session for me, it probably is when I feel like people have checked out a little bit.
Mm.
Um, but sometimes the circumstances are such that there isn't a whole lot for them to do. And um, so yeah, I mean, we have a few entertainers on our watch who try to keep everybody up. We have somebody on coffee and tea duty, so we try to keep people somewhat alert. But
Yeah, yeah.
the reality is it's not always sort of an engaging environment. There are hours that go by where there's not a whole lot going on.
Mm. I am fascinated with the mindsets and your ability to, which I know we've talked about this a lot, like you have a great ability to observe what's going on inside. And how much of being part of a team, being joyful with your team, content, and how much of that is when it's good is when that's happening is great. And then
Mm.
when things feel a little more disengaged or compartmentalized or some off, how that shows up for you. This is really neat.
Mm. That's interesting because I mean, the one thing that has been an observation for me on the whole race is, um, at least in this environment, I am definitely far on the end of introvert as compared to the the rest, most of the people on the boat.
Mm,
And so I, in those situations where there isn't a natural energy and being created by the activity that needs to happen, when there's a void of that, I I am I am very challenged being the solution to that.
mm,
I've noticed, it's not. I don't naturally have the personality to entertain or to get everybody's spirits up. But we have people on the boat who are naturals at that, and so
mm,
that's part of also like. And I have communicated to some of the people on the boat that when there are moments when it feels like the crew's a little flat, a little down, like feel free to, go into joke telling mode, go and share a story. I mean, some of the things that have happened to people in their lives, I just blows my mind, some of
mm.
the craziness that people have been through. But it's cool to see that they get a chance to also be themselves and have that help bring the crew up.
Yeah.
But I've definitely noticed that me personally, that's not a comfortable place for me to play. So
Mm,
that yeah, that's probably the thought that is going on when we're having those down moments um, is a little bit of anxiousness about how do I get us out of this, and instead of focusing on what do I need to do, it's almost like who who can help get us out of this.
yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't think I would have seen myself quite as much of an introvert as I do now, when I started the race. But again, it may also be partially because of the kinds of people that are attracted to do something like sail
Mm.
around the world,
Hmm.
that that you get more outgoing. I don't know.
So a question that curiosity that I had was there is like no privacy on the boat. Like none. You
None.
can't even stay in the bathroom if you want to. I'm
No.
sure because there's 20 other people who need to use the bathroom, right? There's no privacy on the boat. What is that like? Especially for someone you've described like a self-described such an introvert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have to find ways to create some space for yourself if that's something that you need.
Mm,
And I mean, so there are, up above, when we're sailing, there are places in the boat that you can get a little bit of privacy. I mean, not privacy, but to get away from some of the energy. Um, and people are pretty respectful. Like I think one of the things that we talk about is, the different personalities on the boat. We don't want everybody to feel like they have to all be the same and all be, Lorenzo energy or Steve energy or whoever energy. And we don't want to judge or disrespect those for how they naturally are, right?
mm,
And so, we have some crew who are not great, having a lot of exterior noise and music going on. They, that it's not good for their well-being, and so, we create some space around that so that there's sort of quiet times on the boat.
mm,
But it's tough because you get 18 to 20 people. You can't set the boat up perfectly for everybody. So I think, to be honest, I think that the people who've struggled the most on the boat have been people who expected the boat and the other crew to adjust to them.
mm,
Um, and the rest of us have figured out a way to adjust, take responsibility, and to adjust in a way that, and do the best we can to find ways to give us, the space and the quiet that we would desire.
mm.
Um, so yeah, it's exactly as you described. It is very, very hard to not have people around you, uh, looking to get by you, looking to, whose stuff is lying on the floor around you, whatever, almost all the time. Um,
Mm.
but I certainly crave, I look forward to having our little 4 hour and 6 hour breaks, and climbing into my little bunk, with my Kindle and, and my headphones on, and just having a little time and space to myself during those times. Sometimes I'll get up and go on deck when the other watch is still sailing, and I'll go and find a quiet place on the boat and just read for an hour or so.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's an interesting environment to try
Yeah.
to live for 11 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Um, I'd like, thank you for that. Like, that was such a great, I feel like my brain just expands in so many dimensions as we talk. It makes me a little speechless sometimes.